You know what's interesting? One thing you need to consider here, and I think is really important to bring up, is that we operate from a belief system that everyone wants what we want. When I was in
True.
Russia,
True.
and I spoke to the cab drivers and the people, they're saying, we love Putin. Russians like a strong, we want an authoritarian leader.
Yep.
We want to be told what to do. It's our culture. It goes back to the time of the czars
That's right.
in the 1600s.
That's true.
We don't want what you have. We don't want, everyone shouldn't be able to speak freely because we don't want that's not our way.
Yep. That has
What do you
to be-
think about that?
I would never. I think that's why we have to be when a bunch of guys who had never been to Iraq and knew very. I lived in the Middle East for 8 years of my life, and I lived in Lebanon and Saudi Arabia. And I knew, and I'd been to Syria, and I'd been to Jordan, and all those places. And I remember when I was listening to our leaders, George W. and Cheney and Rumsfeld, and some of the people, the architects of the Iraq War, like Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl, William Christoph, those guys. I'm sorry, Bill Kristol. And I was listening to them, and I was like, these guys never been to the Middle East. And they had it sounds to me like they have the hubris to believe
What
that
they
they
need
can
and want.
restructure the Middle East. But wait, Iraq, Babylon, with a historical footprint that goes back 5,000 years,
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing with the Persian Empire, the Iran. You guys who don't know anything about, you don't speak a word of Arabic, you've never been there, and certainly never Iraq, and really probably, I could tell they'd never read any history of the Middle East. They just hadn't. In fact, I remember when Bush was reading a book on the Middle East. He was reading a history of the Middle East, and I'm like, all right, guys, so you guys are going to, Douglas Feith, who was the undersecretary, I know all the names, because I listened very carefully, and I was like, you guys are going to go in there and restructure Iraq. And I remember when they didn't know the difference between a Sunni and a Shia. There's no reason you should. But there is if you're going to go in there and try to restructure.
if you want to try
that Sunni Shia divide in the Middle East is so important when you want to know about the situation on the ground and their history, especially if you're going to be in the business of regime change.
Bombs strapped to your chest?
Yeah.
No bombs strapped to
Yeah,
your chest. It's
exact-
almost that fundamental by that. It's a
Maybe.
very, very, very
Maybe.
even way to look at it.
But
still,
as an actor, I'm an actor. I'm
no,
an actor
I
in a
get
comic.
it.
And I went, and I remember going, I got a question here. If you guys take Saddam out, what happens how do we stop it from becoming a theocracy like Iran? Who's going to take his place? Are you guys going to put the Shia in power? Because then what happens to the Sunnis?
Yeah.
These were questions that weren't answered. And the same thing with Afghanistan.
So, well, you know what Saddam did with his Ba'ath Party, right? You know, he basically was, through violence and terror, was able to fucking bring all the people together.
That's right. He said, you forget being a Sunni Shia, you have to be a Ba'athist.
Exactly.
Which means really you're a pan-Arabist.
Right, exactly.
You're Arabic.
Yeah.
And that was the idea of unifying. Abdel Nasser, who was the president of Egypt, had the same issue.
right,
I like that you know all this shit, dude.
I know all this
I
stuff.
love this stuff. Because so many people don't. And
NASA was great. He was in the 60s, but he came before Sadat, right?
Yeah, and they say the CIA probably put some poison in his liniment.
Probably.
Who the fuck knows? But he was a threat. But that idea of creating sort of a pan-Arabic sort of, crescent where everybody would unify, very difficult to do. But those things were a threat. And when I was either Paul Bremer or Douglas Feith said, no Baathists are allowed to be associated with the United States.
Yeah.
And the entire military, they were like, dude, but wait, hold on. All of us are Baathists because we had to be. You can't fire us because we're the ones with the guns. And the next day, bombs started going off. That created the insurrection.
Yeah.
That meant the general saluted, I can't remember who it was, the guy who was in charge. No, it was the guy before that, and said, but we can keep peace in the streets. We're the ones who know how to do this. We have the guns. You're going to put all these people out of work. These are young men with guns. These are generals like myself with guns. You want to turn us into, we'll be your enemy now. We don't have a choice. And the bombs went off the next day.